Hi everyone, so over on Instagram I was asked by a few people to show how I edit my photographs, so I'm going to be doing that today. It's a little tutorial for you guys. So this is my Instagram currently, so this is like the late summer of 2018, that's where we are right now. And I've started to add a bit of a rosy tint to my images, which you can see across a few of them, and I've edited them in a way that looks slightly vintage with a bit of a rosy pink peachy tint to them, but they're not overly edited and kind of obviously vintage looking. So quite a lot of people have been asking me how I've been achieving this, and I will show you right now. So I just edit everything in Photoshop. I don't use Lightroom. This is the way that I edit my images. I have one open that I shot for a pottery brand called Denby a few months ago, and I thought I would show you how I edit a general lifestyle shot. That is mainly what I photograph for brands when I'm working as a stylist for them, so I thought it would be a good place to start. So I have my image open here. To make this appropriate for Instagram, I'm going to edit the size of the canvas. So I went to New Document. I always have the size of my canvas for Instagram is 1080 by 350, and that will give the portrait size. So I always have everything in portrait because I like that it takes up most of the screen on your phone, and I much prefer that to square or landscape. So I'm just going to select this whole image by doing Command A. This is a Mac, so if you're working on a PC it'll be different, and then Command C to copy it over to my new canvas, which is the right size for Instagram. So I've just copied that over. I'm just going to zoom out and resize the image by doing Command, I can't even remember, I do the shortcuts often, I can't remember, but if you go to Edit and then Transform Scale, that's the way to do it. I always use the shortcuts, which I've completely forgotten because I'm just so used to using them. And then I'm just going to sit this kind of where I want it. So this tray, zoom in a bit, this tray here is the main focus, so I'm making sure that that is sitting in the middle of the image here. I might move it up a touch, a little bit. So that is what we have so far. The first step is I like to lighten my images just by using levels. Some people prefer to use curves, but I like to do it really quickly. So I go to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and then the middle slider comes up a little bit, and then the most right hand slider goes up a little bit, and I just find that that's enough for me for Instagram. I don't go into any crazy details when I'm lightening things, so that looks pretty good. I shot this on quite a bright day, so I'm happy with how that looks anyway. And then the next thing I do is edit the colours. So I go down here to this little circle, which is half white, half black, and I right click on that and click Hue Saturation. So this creates a new layer, which is great because it means you can turn it on and off depending on how you feel. So then I go up to here, I click on Master, then I click Yellows, and I like to desaturate the yellows a little bit. This makes greens look slightly nicer, and I also tend to make yellows look a bit warmer and a bit more, less yellow and a bit more rose gold, but not taking it too far. So I do that. I might actually just bring it to about, I'd say actually maybe 10. This image isn't too yellowy, so I've just desaturated the yellows by -10, and I've made them a little bit more pinky reddy, kind of around -7, usually between -5 to -7, just to make the yellows seem a bit more warm and red. And then I also will add another layer, do exactly the same thing, so Hue Saturation, and I'm going to boost the entire saturation for the whole image up to about 10. So the reason why I like to do these on separate layers, if you can see, if I hide one of them, you can see a slight change. So if I decided that I didn't like it, I can just click on the eye and it will hide it. And then I can do the same thing for this. So that was the original image. Then I made the yellows a little bit desaturated and add a bit of a red tint to them. And then I made the whole image a little bit more saturated, like very, very slightly. So you can see if you kind of toggle them on and off, you can see a slight change. So I'm kind of happy with that for now. I might actually pump up the saturation just a touch more. I like that. The next thing I want to edit is the colour of this grapefruit here. I would like it to look a little bit more pink. And the way I do that is super easy. I just go to Images, Adjustments, and then Replace Colour. And you have this eyedropper tool, and I just click on the grapefruit, and then I hold down the Shift key, and there's a little plus sign, and I click around the entire grapefruit, making sure it's selecting as much of the colour as possible. And you can see up here that what it's kind of picking up in the image. So I just drag the slider up a little bit, and the further you drag the slider, the more it will select in the image to edit. So you can see it's picking up on like the peachy tone in the image, and I want that to just be a little bit more pink instead of peach. So, I mean, just very, very slightly. And you can see, actually, if you look at where the grapefruit is, if I slide the hue, you can see how drastically you can change the colour of something. I don't want to go that far. So it's a little bit more pinky, and also I'm going to lighten it a touch as well. Just so it complements my feed and it picks up the pink of the cushion a little bit better as well. So it's going to make that a little bit lighter. So if I go back, I mean, it's barely a change, but I'm a perfectionist and I much prefer it being a little bit more pinky. I love pink. So that is the kind of colour adjustments done. So little tiny changes, but I just feel like the colours are slightly nicer now. I prefer them to look this way, and I think they'll be more cohesive in my feed as well. The next thing I do is a bit odd, but I've really been enjoying adding kind of peachy, cloudy filters to things. So all I do is I double click on the colour here, this top one, and I'm just gonna drag it up a little bit, change it slightly, and then go to the brush tool and just kind of add some kind of slight cloudiness with the brush tool. So I need a new layer first. So click on these little lines here, add new layer. And then I'm just gonna, this will look crazy at first, but I will edit this and tone it down slightly. And this just adds a kind of nice little hazy corner. And you can do it anywhere in the image, but I kind of just like it coming in from one corner. So you can see this is a separate layer now. What I'm going to do is go to multiply, so you can see through that colour now. And I'm going to tone it down quite a lot over here. And you can just see this like slight pink haze coming in. I might actually add a little bit more. And then I go in with my eraser tool, and I don't want it really covering the plant, so I'm going to make it slightly bigger. I always keep everything, like all the hardness with my brushes, to 0% for this. Just a little bit bigger. And then I'll come in and just kind of click around on things I don't want to be pink. And a bit bigger. So you can see you're just getting like a little touch of it coming through in this corner, which again ties all the pink in together, so I really like that effect. I've done it on a few of my images. Some are more obvious than others. Just press OK. I'll just show you on Instagram what I mean. So I did it on this photograph here, so you can see that to make the wall a little bit more pinky, I did exactly the same thing in this corner and here. And I also did it here a little bit too, just like tiny little touches of pink coming through in the corners. I just really like how that looks, and I think it creates a really nice cohesive rosy tint on my photographs. I don't do that all the time, but if something's very light, I tend to do it. So I think I'm just going to turn that down a little bit more. And then the final thing I do is I then go down again to this half black, half white circle, and I choose gradient map. And this will bring up something that's kind of crazy, but we are going to change it. So I just double click to edit the gradient. So I usually do something like, I just double click again on that colour, which was here. And then I will usually go for kind of a sepia tone, something like that. I sometimes go a bit more pinky with it, but it's usually around this sort of colour, and I just kind of play around until I think, that looks pretty good. And then with this one, double click here, and I again drag it all the way down because we're trying to get that rosy hint. Might go a little bit more peachy. So very pale, something like that. I might go even a bit paler than that. Press OK, press OK. And then with this, I go to this bar here. Instead of multiply like we did with the peachy pink kind of brush strokes we brought in, we go down to soft light. So you can see that that has added a really strong pink filter to it, but that's a little bit too much for me. So what I do is I go to opacity, and again I drag this slider down just like we did before to something that I feel happy with. So somewhere around there looks good. Again, you can see if I click the eye icon what it's like before and then after. So it's add this really nice vintage rosy warm tint to it, which I love at the moment. So that is essentially what I do, and then this will go onto Instagram, and I don't really edit it at all really from here on Instagram. I would usually just post it, but I find this is a really nice way to add a cohesive look to all of your images. If you don't like the pink tone, you can change it to something else. So if I just go back, if I just delete this layer and add in, do exactly the same thing but do maybe a blue colour instead. So if we go to gradient map, click on this again, and instead of red I can add in like a dark blue-grey. And again, if I drag this slider down to the blue side, we can add in blue here. If I press OK, and then went down to soft light again, you can see how that's adding a really blue tint instead. So you can pick the colour that you like the most. For me, it is most definitely peach. Again, if you were using a different colour, I would also choose a different colour for this layer, which was that brush stroke that we added. I wouldn't use peach if you were using blue. I would pick something that complements the blue slightly better. So yeah, that is essentially it. I now need to go back and get my pink layer back, which is there. Here we go. So yes, those are all the little elements that I do to edit a picture. So you can see if I get rid of all of this, what it was like before, which now to me seems quite dull and boring. And if I add all these elements back in, you can see what a difference it makes. It's much more vibrant. It has a lot of warmth to it, which I absolutely love. So this is how I edit my photos for Instagram and my blog. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and let me know if you found it useful and if you'll be editing your photos in this way as well. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for watching.